Okay, if you've got a Chumby One or a Insignia um, equivalent, and you have had a problem where your Chumby will not turn on, or maybe it will cycle through, or maybe it's doing something like this. Maybe when it boots up, it gets so far through the bubbles, and then it resets and starts rebooting again. If that's your problem, I think I've got a fix for you. Okay, so if you have that problem with the Chumby rebooting over and over, or flashing on the display, or your Insignia 3.5 or the Chumby One, here is what likely is the problem. There are a couple capacitors inside the power supply here. We're going to get inside that and try to fix that. The way you can do that is you can take one of these clamps, and we're going to try to loosen this up a little bit by squeezing it on the sides. We're going to have to break this plastic because it's glued. So we're going to tighten it a couple places, and then when we're done with this, we are going to just tape it back together. So try squeezing it from the different sides, and hopefully we can get it to where it will come open, that you can pull it apart. It may be helpful to get a screwdriver. Let me see if I can grab a screwdriver and pry. Alright, so here's what we've done. Okay, I'm going to take this part down. Now the case, notice how these, especially this one capacitor, is bulged. That one looks okay, but this one here, I think we need to replace it. So that's what we're going to do. We'll replace this capacitor, and I can't see what the value is right off, but we'll get that for you. Okay, so taking this power supply over, I want to get at that capacitor. I've got some solder wick here, which works great at removing the solder that's holding this capacitor in. So the thing is, you got to determine where those capacitors are, or the leads to that capacitor. I'm going to hold the solder wick up against there and allow the solder to wick up into that solder braid. Do that to both of the leads of that capacitor, and maybe while heating, oh, it came out already. Alright, so this capacitor is a 10 volt 1000 microfarad capacitor. So I'm going to find one and replace that and see if that fixes our problem. Okay, so here's what I've got. This had a 10 volt 1000 microfarad capacitor in there. I've got a 1000 microfarad 16 volt capacitor here. This can be substituted for this one. It's got a higher voltage rating, which actually makes it a better capacitor. 16 volts, it will hold a higher voltage than this 10 volt one, so it'll actually be better than this one. And one thing we want to note is there's a side that has a minus, so that minus side goes with the shaded area on there. These usually have one lead longer than the other. That's the plus side. The plus side will go into the blank side, or the non-shaded area. So we will push this through those holes, push it down in there, comes out the other side. We're going to solder this back in. Take some solder, regular solder, and your solder iron, and solder that in there, and then we're going to clip off the excess leads. Okay, so now I'm going to take a pair of wire clips and cut off those excess leads. Okay, and I may just touch that up where I had those leads at. Alright, we're going to put this back together just the way we popped it out. And I'm going to get the top part of that piece. And we're going to just reassemble this. And while I have it there, let's see, should I go ahead? I can do that. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and take my tape and tape it up. Put a piece of tape this way, and we'll cut that, and we will put a couple pieces around this way, and if you wanted to, you could glue it. I've painted some on there so I could label these adapters. I like to try to keep mine labeled and what they go to. Okay, so I've got that taped down. That's secure. Let's go try it. Okay, here we're back with our Chumby. We've got our power supply here that's been modified, or has had the capacitor replaced. And we're going to plug that in, and we're going to plug the Chumby in right back here. And lo and behold, it looks like it's going to boot. Whereas before it was sitting there flashing. So we've just fixed our Chumby power supply. We'll make sure it comes up all the way. And while we wait on that, let's hope that Chumby comes back to life with all the widgets and everything. I know I've been watching the forums to see what they can do, and I'm starting to work on trying to get my own widgets put together just so I can have my NOAA weather and a decent clock going, because it's probably the two biggest things I used on my Chumby the most were the clock and the weather. And I got Chumbys for my kids and my wife, and my kids love the weather too. They're always asking me in the morning, what's weather like now? What do I need to wear? and it's loading the control panel, and it's going to come up to the generic space clock. Let's watch. And I think this was the longest part of the job, is watching the Chumby boot. And there we are, all fixed. Thanks for watching. Remember, you can find me at www.anyonecanfixit.com.